Hi guys, how are you today? I hope you're feeling good and feeling blessed. We are from Group 6 and today we will learn together with you about context, style and register. But before that, let me introduce our team first. My name is Gatra and I'm here with Sanin, Brigitta and Novita. So now without any further ado, let's jump to the material. First, you need to learn about addressee. You need to understand what addressee as an influence on style is. So what do you think it's about, guys? Exactly, it is about the language used by people when referring to others. Depending on their age, their social status, their occupation or their particular form of job, and it's depend also by their nationality or ethnicity. So in short, it is about how to talk to who. Now there are two important things that you need to really understand. You need to understand. It is age of addressee and social background of the addressee. Age of addressee. It is how people talk differently to children and to adults. Believe me or not that we did this every time. We talk to our father and we talk to our friend. We must be saying it differently or deliver it differently, even though it's the same context. For the example here we provide, if you want to ask are they want to eat or not, to children we usually say this: do you want to eat? And for adults we usually say this: are you starving? Now you see the difference, right? Basically, it is based on their age. Okay, now number 2, social background of the addressee. Here we provide examples to help you understand easier. You can see part A and part B. It is news script from 2 different radio stations. And today I will pretend to be your newsreader and read this news script from 2 different radio stations. Okay, now part A or radio station A. Last week, the British Prime Minister Mr. David Cameron met the Australian Premier Miss Widya Gatra in Canberra. Their next meeting will not be for several months. Now part B. Last week, British Prime Minister David Cameron met Australian Premier Widya Gatra in Canberra. The next meeting won't be for several months. Do you hear any difference between part A and part B? If yes, these differences illustrate a number of linguistic features which distinguish by pronunciations of the newsreaders, or me here as the example, on different radio station A or the part A and radio station B. In B, there is simplification of consonant cluster. So last become last and next become next. The pronunciation of the author between vowels is voiced, so it sounds like a D or D. Hence, meeting becomes meeting. The definite article the or the is omitted before the titles Prime Minister and Premier, and the honorifics Mrs. and Mr. disappear. So to replace Mrs. and Mr., radio station B use the in front of Prime Minister and Premier. And finally, utterance B contracts will not to want. So want replaced by yes, will not. All these features have been identified as typical of contrasting. Now we provide a graphic for you so you can see that there are 2 radio station A or radio station ZB and radio station B or YA. You can see the difference between linguistic feature here, and also such as voicing, CC reduction, determiner dilation, negative contraction. In this graphic, we can see that the contrast between the newsreader army for written news on radio station ZB and radio station YA. On radio station ZB, the audience came from the lower end of the social spectrum, and radio station YA, the audience are more older and generally better healed. So in radio station YA, I will sound a little bit more educated because my listeners are older people, and it is also a national radio station. So guys, until this part, do you understand about what I'm talking about? If yes, let's jump to another material, and it will be explained by my friends after this.
Okay, let's jump into accommodation theory. Accommodation theory is a theory of how to adapt when interacting between the speaker and the listener. Accommodation theory can be called problems in communication, or how to adjust when communicating between the speaker and the listener. Okay, in this accommodation theory, we have the first one, speech convergence, and then we have speakers speech accommodate, and speech divergent, and accommodation problem. In the speech convergence has the definition that is the result the listener is able to catch the message the speaker transmits. It tends to happen when speakers like one another, or when one speaker has a vested interest in pleasing or comforting the other. Converging to someone else's speech is generally considered to be a respectful method of speech. For example, when the speaker spoke to the listener about Megamind, if the speaker or the listener alone who have the concept of Megamind, then when speaking about Megamind, they will not be convergent. Okay, get it, class? Speaker accommodate is the way speakers match or adjusted the language with the capability to whom listener. In linguistics, accommodation is the process by which participants in a conversation adjust their accent, diction, or other aspect of language according to the speech style of the other participant. That's why it's called linguistic accommodation, or speech accommodation, and or communication accommodation. Okay, after that, speech divergence. Have you ever heard about speech divergence? Okay, speech divergence is the effect when the listener cannot understand the speaker's accommodation problem is the circumstances where the listener cannot absorb the speaker's message for not sharing the same information and concept. If there is no disconnection communication in the text or spoken conversation, the listener can ask the speaker how to convey your message. There are several examples of communication problem, including missing communication. However, if the case of incoherent communication happens in written text. For example, when we read the book, then looking for common information by searching on the internet or reading books is to find the meaning of the message the writer wants to. Okay, after this kind of accommodations, problem and other, we will meet to context, style and class. So, do you know the differences between context, style and class? Yeah, let's jump into the context first. So, a context is a concept, a schematic structure which exists in each individual. Context can also be sourced from the previous incident and formed by psychology in every individual. This definition by H.G. Widya. So after that, the style and class will explain by Vita.
According to Giant Holmes 2001, there are two definitions about style. The first is style is language variation which reflects change in situational factors such as a dress, setting, task, or topic. The second is style is often analyzed along a scale of formality. The level of formality is influenced by some factor like the various differences among the participant, topic, emotional involvement, and etc. And then the next is formal contact and social rules. The form of the remark or utterance of someone in a conversation that adjusts with the social rules or the setting of the place. For example, Budi has a mother who worked as a lecturer at his university. When at home, Budi called her mom, but when she was on campus, Budi called her miss. Budi adjusts the language according to this place or social rules. And then the next is colloquial style or the vernacular. The style of language that used every day in daily life or the native language or accent. Used when people are speaking in an informal way or using an informal style. The example of vernacular is vernacular refers to ordinary, everyday, and plain language in speaking or writing, such as corn in a common name of a plant and its scientific name is maize or zemais. And then the second example, take for it is folk song. The lyric is and it's all for me, grog, me, jolly jolly grog. Folk songs are usually written in vernacular. This one has a couple of very early stages. For one, the word me is used to replace mine. The word grog is also an informal Irish term for beer. And then the next is the interaction of social class and style. The interaction between social class and style, which is used when communication. For example, the language used in daily life by lecturer must be different from people who work at street vendors. Lecturer use formal language rather than street vendors. And then the next is hypercorrection. An attempt to justify a language is a sentence or phrase, but it leads to the wrong result. The use of some of the rules of pronunciation or grammar rules that many users assume the language is not correct. For example, Hebrew correction occur when real or imagined grammatical or phonetical rules are applied in erroneous or non-standard context. For example, between you and I, this is incorrect sentence. The correct sentence is between you and me. And then the next is style in non-Western societies. The definition of style in non-Western societies is style that usually used in or by non-Western society. For example, Japanese. In Japanese, if the speaker is a high social person, the language tends to be more settled or use kromo-inggil. But if the speaker is a low social person, the language tends to be rough or use mopo. I think that's all for me, and then the next will be explained by my friend.
And now we're gonna talk about register. Register is a variety of language defined according to its use in social situations. It depends on what do you do, by whom, and by what means. Register indicates the types of social process is going on. For example, a register of specific, religious, formal English, or varieties according to use. So, what makes register different with dialect? Register used as a variations of language based on its use or in social purpose, while dialect as a variations of language based on its users or language spoken by an individual or group. Register determined by such factors as social, occasion, context, purpose, and audience. Register have 5 types. The first type is frozen, the second is formal, the third is consultative, the fourth is casual, and the last is intimate. So now, let's start with the first one. Frozen. This form is sometimes called the static register because it refers to historic language or communication that is intended to remain unchanged, like a constitution or prayer. The example of these types is the Bible, the United States Constitution, the Bhagavad Gita, and Romeo and Juliet. From all of that example, the Bible is the clearer one because Bible use historic language. You cannot change the word or even the meaning. And then the second type is formal. Formal, less rigid, but still constrained. The formal register is used in professional, academic, or legal settings where communications is expected to be respectful, uninterrupted, and restrained. Slang is never used, and constructions are rare. For example, a TED Talk, a business presentation, the Encyclopedia Britannica, and Grey's Anatomy by Henry Gray. Just imagine when you deliver
a business presentation and you use slang. That's impossible, right? Now let's jump to the third type, that is consultative. People use this register often in conversation when they are speaking with someone who has specialized knowledge or who is offering advice. Tone is often respectful or use of courtesy titles, but may be more casual if the relationship is long-standing or friendly, like a family doctor. Slang here is sometimes used. People may pause or interrupt one another. For example, the local TV news broadcast. The broadcaster not just only deliver the news, but they also have conversation with their partner or with the audience in their home through television. This conversation is just for intermezzo, or let's just say a pause time during the whole news. And the next example is an annual physical, and then a service provider like a plumber. And the next example, the next type is casual. Casual is a register which people use when they are with friends, close acquaintances, and co-workers, and family. It's probably the one you think of when you consider how you talk with other people, often in a group setting. The use of slang, constructions, and vernacular grammar is all common. And people may also use expletives or off-color language in some settings. For example, like a birthday party or backyard barbecue and other party. And the next is intimate types. Linguists say this register is reserved for special occasions, usually between only two people and often in private. Intimate language may be something as simple as inside joke between two college friends, or a word whispered in a lover's ear. And yeah, that's all the 5 types of register. And now we're going jump to the conclusions of our presentation. People's speech not only reflects as aspects of their identity, such as their ethnicity, age, gender, and social background. It also reflects the context they use the language in. The way people speak in court, in school, at business meetings, and at graduation ceremonies is a product of the formality of the environment and the social positions the people participate on. And then, style, context, and register is continuity. Therefore, if we just address one of them, such as context or style, then there would not be comprehension. language users are concerned and to whom language users use the language. Automatically, the background and style registers can be used in the discussions. Understanding the context and style is already present in our daily life, so we have only improved it well by learning from the environment and education. Variations in language, which is a combination of context and language diversity. So, people will absorb other people's language that is considered attractive, but also within the reach of comprehension. So that's all our presentation, guys. Thank you for your participation and your attention. And I remind you guys, don't forget to use mask. Always wash your hands and take care of yourself and your family to stay